And as soon as it broke out, I was over on the other side and I go, fuck, I know exactly what that is. I knew it.
The fight footage you're seeing right now just went viral. And the man getting absolutely swarmed isn't even a signed UFC fighter. But the second he showed Conor McGregor and Khabib-Nurmagomedov's inner circle what was on his phone, it ignited the single most explosive brawl we've seen since Khabib himself leaped out of that cage. And stick around, because what happened next might just change the course of UFC history forever. Picture this, the night everything exploded. It's November 15th, 2025, at Madison Square Garden, arguably the most famous arena on the entire planet. We're talking 20,000 screaming fans, packed into those legendary seats, all waiting for what everyone knew was going to be a historic night of fights. Islam Makhachev, the man many people already considered the greatest lightweight of all time, was about to step into that octagon to challenge for his second world championship, this time for the welterweight title. If he pulled this off, it would be a feat that would cement his legacy right alongside the absolute legends of the sport. The energy in that building was absolutely electric. You could literally feel it radiating through every single row, from the nosebleed seats all the way down to the cage side, where the most important people in the sport had gathered. I'm talking fighters, coaches, managers, and celebrities. Everyone who was anyone in the world of mixed martial arts had shown up to witness what they believed would be a masterclass in dominance. And then just as the iconic opening notes of The Who's Baba O'Reilly started blasting through those massive speakers, signaling the start of the pay-per-view main card, something happened that nobody, and I mean absolutely nobody, could have seen coming. A massive brawl erupted right there at cage side in Madison Square Garden, involving over 10 members of Islam Makhachev's team and one single, solitary individual. The commentators John Anik, Joe Rogan, and Daniel Cormier were right in the middle of their introduction when fists started flying in the background. Shoes went airborne, a chair was actually raised, and security personnel went scrambling in every direction. And right in the center of it all was a man who isn't even signed to the UFC, a man who had somehow managed to purchase his own ticket to this event, knowing full well what kind of reception was waiting for him. That man was Dillon Danis. Now, if you've been following mixed martial arts for any length of time, you know exactly who Dillon Danis is. He's Conor McGregor's jiu-jitsu coach, his training partner and his closest ally in the sport. But perhaps most importantly, he's been the primary antagonist targeting Khabib Nurmagomedov's entire circle for the better part of a decade. But what Danis did in the lead-up to UFC 322 crossed a line that nobody had ever dared to cross before. In the days before the event, Danis had created and shared AI-generated videos depicting Islam Makhachev in deeply, profoundly offensive scenarios. We're talking about digitally manipulated content that showed the UFC champion in intimate situations with his own manager, Ali Abdelaziz. There was content that depicted him embracing a former adult film star. All of it was content specifically designed to mock his Muslim faith, his cultural values, and absolutely everything he holds sacred. And Danis didn't just post this stuff online. No, he reportedly showed the videos directly to Makhachev's team members while sitting just a few rows away from them at the event. He literally walked right up to them, phone in hand, and displayed the very content that had been circulating for days. Javier Mendez, the legendary coach who trained both Khabib Nurmagomedov and Islam Makhachev for years, would later explain exactly what went down. He said, "They showed me the videos of what he was posting. They showed me the videos of Ali and Islam in a relationship-type embrace. And then a porn star. And Islam embracing. What do you expect when you do that? And what do you expect indeed?" The response was immediate, swift, and violent. Magomed Zainakov, a teammate from Dagestan, known by his nickname John Pork, led the charge, landing multiple punches to the back of Danis's head. Abubakar Nurmagomedov, Khabib's own cousin, was right there in the thick of it. More than 10 fighters swarmed the area. Someone raised a chair clean over their head. Shoes went flying, literally becoming airborne projectiles in the middle of the chaos.
Back of the head. Here they come. Shoes are going everywhere.
The entire thing lasted less than 60 seconds. But in those 60 seconds, the whole trajectory of this intense rivalry changed forever. Hunter Campbell, who was the UFC's chief business officer, had to physically intervene to break up the fight. Security personnel just started grabbing whoever they could get their hands on. In the middle of all the chaos, Danis actually lost his shoe. There's footage that shows him retrieving it from the floor amidst the mayhem, which is just a bizarre little detail that somehow perfectly encapsulates the sheer absurdity of the entire situation. And here's the thing that makes this whole incident even more surreal and frankly unbelievable. Dana White knew it was coming. He knew.
I blame myself for that, actually. They came back and told me right before I walked out for the main card that Dylan Danis was here and he was moving around sitting in fighter seats and not sitting in his own seat that he had. He had a ticket. And they said, do you want us to throw him out of here? And I said, he has a ticket?
You heard that right. The UFC president had been warned. His own security team had told him that Dylan Danis was there, that he was moving around, sitting in seats that weren't his, and getting closer and closer to the one group of people in the entire arena who would absolutely, unequivocally respond to his presence with pure violence.
And as soon as it broke out, I was over on the other side and I go, fuck, I know exactly what that is. I knew it.
So, when those fists started flying, you can bet Dana White knew exactly what was happening in that moment. Because this wasn't just some random altercation between fans, this wasn't a couple of drunk guys getting into it over a disagreement. No, this was the explosive culmination of years, and I mean years, of bad blood. We're talking about personal attacks, deep cultural disrespect, and a simmering hatred that had been building ever since that infamous night in Las Vegas, all the way back into. The immediate consequence of the brawl was decisive and absolute. Dylan Danis received a lifetime ban from all future UFC events.
And yeah, you will never see Dylan Danis at a UFC fight ever again.
But here's where the story takes an even darker, more complicated turn. Because the men who actually attacked Danis, they didn't receive any punishment from the UFC. Not a single one. There were no suspensions, no fines, absolutely nothing. And if you think this situation has somehow been resolved, if you honestly believe that a lifetime ban means this beef is over, then you really haven't been paying attention to what these men have been saying since that night.
And it's never going to work, and he's going to get beat up. This is not over.
Ali Abdelaziz, the manager who was at the very center of those disgusting AI-generated videos, made something abundantly clear in the days that followed the incident. He laid out the new reality in no uncertain terms.
Let's go, brother, but I'm telling you, this guy is not safe as Whole Food, at an airport, at a terminal. And if people catch this guy, he's going to have problems. He's not done. These people not done with him. For the rest of his life, he's not done. Him or Conor, they're not safe.
Him or Conor. That's right. This isn't just about Dylan Danis anymore. According to Abdelaziz, Conor McGregor himself has now been officially pulled back into this ongoing conflict. And in his eyes, there is only one way that this is going to end.
Or they have to come out and say, you know what? We're sorry. We give up. We are done. And after that, you'll get mercy. But there's no mercy right now.
No mercy. Those two words just hang in the air like a threat that hasn't been fully realized. And now, the NYPD has officially launched a formal investigation into the entire incident, which hemmed after New York City's own mayor, Eric Adams, condemned the assaults as being completely unacceptable. As of today, no arrests have been made and no charges have been filed. But that investigation is very much ongoing, and the possibility of real criminal consequences still looms over every single person involved. But to truly understand why this situation has become so incredibly volatile, why the emotions run this deep, and why there appears to be absolutely no end in sight to this conflict, we need to go back, way back. Back to where it all began. Back to the moment when Conor McGregor and Khabib Nurmagomedov's rivalry transformed into the most personal, most bitter, and most violent feud in the entire history of combat sports. Let's talk about the origins of this war. To truly understand how we got here, to this point, where a former adult film star and some AI-generated videos can spark a near riot at Madison Square Garden, you absolutely need to understand the history. And that history begins with two men from completely different worlds whose paths were destined to collide in the most explosive way imaginable. Believe it or not, Conor McGregor and Khabib Nurmagomedov's rivalry actually started with mutual respect back in 2014, but it escalated dramatically due to a perfect storm of cultural clashes, deeply personal insults, and intense professional competition. In fact, McGregor once predicted that Khabib would one day become the lightweight champion of the world. He saw the undeniable talent, he recognized the sheer dominance. There was a genuine acknowledgement of skill and ability between these two fighters. But somewhere along the way, that respect completely evaporated, and what replaced it was pure, unadulterated hatred. By 2015, Khabib was already openly calling out McGregor, using what would eventually become his signature phrase, he wanted to smash the Irishman. And McGregor, who has never been one to back down from verbal warfare, responded in kind. But here's the thing. McGregor's responses weren't just standard trash talk. They cut deeper. Much, much deeper. McGregor's provocations repeatedly and intentionally targeted Khabib's Muslim faith, his family, and his Dastani heritage. He called Khabib a terrorist. He mocked his manager Ali Abdelaziz as a snitch terrorist rat. He insulted his father, Abdulmanap Nurmagomedov, a man who wasn't just Khabib's coach, but his spiritual guide, his moral compass, his everything. For a man like Khabib, who comes from a culture where family honor and religious devotion are paramount, these weren't just words. They were declarations of war. And then came On April 5, 2018, Conor McGregor and approximately 20 of his associates stormed the Barclays Center in Brooklyn during the UFC 23 Media Day. Their target, a bus that was carrying fighters, including Khabib Nurmagomedov himself.
Conor McGregor grabbed a steel dolly and smashed in a bus window at Barclays Center in Brooklyn on Thursday afternoon, injuring UFC fighter Michael Chiesa, and now all hell is breaking loose.
McGregor grabbed a heavy steel dolly, one of those metal hand trucks used for moving equipment, and he hurled it with all his might through the window of the bus. Glass shattered and exploded everywhere. Fighters inside were cut, they were bloodied, they were injured. Michael Chiesa suffered facial lacerations so severe that his upcoming fight had to be cancelled. Ray Borg sustained corneal abrasions to his eyes. Rose Namajunas, who was supposed to co-headline the entire event, was left shaken and deeply traumatized. It was later revealed that Rose Namajunas was on that bus, and the dolly came just inches from breaking her hand. She was incredibly shaken up and disturbed by the whole situation. This wasn't trash talk anymore. This was a criminal assault, plain and simple. McGregor was arrested and charged with assault and criminal mischief. He eventually pleaded no contest to disorderly conduct, completed 5 days of community service and anger management, and managed to avoid any jail time. Michael Chiesa later sued McGregor for assault, battery, and emotional distress, a lawsuit that wasn't actually settled until December of 2020. But here's the thing that made this entire incident even more disturbing. Instead of distancing themselves from the violence, the UFC used the actual footage of the attack to promote the eventual fight between McGregor and Khabib. They literally turned a criminal act into a marketing tool. They monetized the chaos. And on October 6, 2018, that chaos reached its absolute peak. UFC 229 sold an incredible 2.4 million pay-per-views, a UFC record at the time, and it generated a staggering $17.2 million in gate revenue, the highest in Nevada's MMA history. 20,000 people packed into the T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas to witness what everyone knew would be more than just a fight. It was going to be a reckoning. Khabib dominated from the very opening bell. His grappling was suffocating. His pressure was absolutely relentless, and through it all, he talked. He pointed at McGregor's corner, he cursed at Dylan Dennis between rounds. The rage was just building with every single second that passed. And then, in the fourth round, Khabib sunk in a neck crank that forced McGregor to tap out. The fight was over. Khabib had won, but he wasn't finished. Khabib threw his mouthpiece toward McGregor's corner, scaled the octagon cage, and launched himself feet first at Dylan Dennis. The post-fight brawl that erupted involved over a dozen people. Khabib's cornermen, Zubaira Tukhugov and Esed Emiragayev, entered the cage and attacked McGregor. Punches were thrown everywhere. Security was completely overwhelmed. The entire event descended into absolute, unadulterated mayhem. Khabib later explained why he targeted Dennis specifically. For him, submitting McGregor just wasn't enough. He wanted to punish McGregor's entire team. He wanted to make a statement that disrespecting his faith, his family, and his culture would have consequences far beyond just losing a fight. The fallout was severe. The Nevada State Athletic Commission fined Khabib $500,000 and suspended him for 9 months. McGregor was fined $50,000 and suspended for 6 months. Dillon Danis received a $7,500 fine and a 7-month suspension. Dana White called the brawl an embarrassment to the sport. Khabib's own father criticized his actions and promised discipline. The world watched as what should have been a celebration of incredible athletic achievement devolved into what looked like tribal warfare. But even after the fines were paid and the suspensions were served, the hatred never dissipated. It just went underground, festering in the shadows of social media, waiting for its next opportunity to explode. Even after Khabib retired undefeated in October 2020 with a perfect record of 29-0, McGregor continued his attacks, including incredibly insensitive remarks about Khabib's father, Abdulmanap, who had passed away earlier that year. There is perhaps no line lower than mocking a man's deceased father, but McGregor crossed it anyway. And now, 7 years after their only fight, the rivalry has found brand new battlefield. Dillon Danis became the proxy warrior, targeting Khabib's protege, Islam Makhachev, with the very same tactics that had proven so explosive before: AI-generated videos, cultural mockery, and religious disrespect.
This guy is nothing but an internet coward. He's a nobody. He's a nobody. And in a way, when you talk about people, like this is a warning for all these people who really talk.
When you hear them, Ali Abdelaziz's words carry the immense weight of history. You have to understand, this isn't just about one isolated incident at Madison Square Garden. This is about years of accumulated disrespect, years of insults, years of direct attacks on everything these men hold sacred.
You cannot live this life behind a screen and a keyboard. When you're gonna meet the people you talk about, especially this group, they will hold you accountable. If you're a reporter, if you're a fighter, if you're anybody, you will be held accountable for your action. And this is what exactly happened.
Accountability. That's a word that just keeps coming up again and again in this story. For the men from Dagestan, words have real consequences. Actions have real consequences, and hiding behind a computer screen doesn't protect you from those consequences forever.
Is it not crazy to say now that Islam has surpassed the great Khabib Nurmagomedov?
Listen, at the end of the day, Islam does have more accomplishment. But what Khabib has done for all of us as community, as Muslim, for Dagestan, for Russia, for everyone,
it's going to be very hard to repeat. See, Khabib's legacy extends far beyond his incredible fighting record. He represents something much larger: a community, a faith, a culture, and any attacks on his inner circle are perceived as attacks on all of that.
But I think the brothers, Khabib trained him to be better than him. You understand? It's not like Khabib wanted him to surpass him. Khabib wanted him to be better than him. It's like a father or a big brother wanted his brother to be better than him, be more successful than him.
Islam Makhachev isn't just Khabib's teammate. To him, he's his brother. He's his legacy. And when you attack Islam, you are by extension attacking Khabib himself. The bonds between these men are absolutely unbreakable. But just when it seemed like the UFC 322 brawl might finally be the last chapter in this ongoing saga, something else happened. Something that proved this rivalry has evolved beyond the physical realm entirely. Let's talk about the war that never ends. 11 days after the brawl at Madison Square Garden, 11 days after Dillon Danis was banned from UFC events for life, 11 days after punches were thrown and shoes went flying, and the world watched in utter disbelief as professional fighters attacked a spectator in the crowd, on November 26, 2025, Conor McGregor himself re-entered the fray with a stunning accusation aimed squarely at Khabib Nurmagomedov. McGregor claimed that Khabib had orchestrated a multi-million-dollar scam by selling digital collectibles. These were virtual versions of traditional Dagestani hats called papakas on the messaging app Telegram. He accused his longtime rival of exploiting his late father's name and legacy to defraud fans out of approximately $4.4 million. The accusation cut deep. McGregor wrote that father's plan has now become father's scam, a twisted and malicious reference to the famous phrase that Khabib had used throughout his career to honor his father's vision for his fighting future. The Papa Ka project had launched on November 22, 2025, selling 29,000 digital collectibles. At about $150 each, the items completely sold out in less than 20. Shortly after, promotional posts were deleted from Khabib's social media accounts, which McGregor immediately seized upon as clear evidence of fraudulent behavior. Khabib's response was swift and absolutely cutting. "You absolute liar," he wrote. "You will always try to darken my name." He explained the project. They do create exclusive digital gifts with real-time value that you can share with your friends and family, gifts in the shape of Papa Ka, hat that symbolized traditions and culture of Dagestan people. But Khabib didn't stop there. He pivoted to something far more personal. "My count is 56 former drug addicts at my rehabilitation centers in Dagestan that I treated," he wrote. "Come to Dagestan. They'll take care of you here." The implication was unmistakable and brutal. Khabib was directly referencing McGregor's well-documented struggles with alcohol and substance abuse issues. He was publicly inviting his rival to come receive treatment at his rehabilitation facilities. It was a volatile counterpunch that landed harder than any fist ever could. And then, blockchain investigator Zach XBT entered the conversation with receipts that completely exposed McGregor's own hypocrisy. According to Zach XBT, McGregor had launched his own cryptocurrency project, a meme coin called Real, back in April. That project raised only 39% of its funding target before completely failing and refunding investors. McGregor had also promoted a 2022 NFT project called McGregor Realm that similarly vanished after the promotion ended. The irony was absolutely staggering. Here was Conor McGregor, a man with his own documented history of failed cryptocurrency ventures, accusing Khabib Nurmagomedov of running a scam. To date, no buyers of the Papa Ka collectibles have reported not receiving their item. The project, which was built on the Ton blockchain in collaboration with Telegram founder Pavel Durov, appears to function exactly as intended. Whether it represents good value is certainly debatable, but whether it's an actual scam appears to be a much harder case to make. But these accusations revealed something incredibly important. This rivalry has transcended the physical. It has now moved into the digital realm, into the world of cryptocurrency and NFTs and AI-generated content. The battleground has expanded, but the hatred remains exactly the same. And that hatred shows absolutely no signs of diminishing.
And this is why, man, it's so much love. Habib does this for nothing. He gained nothing. He gained no money. He gained no hype. The man have 40 million followers on Instagram. He doesn't need anything. But he just wants, this is his father's student, this is his brother, and he wants him to be better than him.
You have to understand, the bond between Khabib and Islam Makhachev represents something that McGregor and Danis can never truly comprehend. It's not a partnership built on business relationships or mutual benefit. It's built on family, on faith, and on a shared cultural identity that runs so much deeper than any financial arrangement ever could.
Guess what? If you surpass him, Islam is Islam and Habib, you know. They're brothers. They have the same goal. They have the same happiness. They win together. They lose together. Compare them to each other, it doesn't do them any justice, honestly.
Comparing Khabib and Islam really misses the point entirely. They don't see themselves as competitors against one another. They see themselves as extensions of the very same mission, a mission that began with Abdulmanap Nurmagomedov's vision and continues through every single fighter who trains at the American Kickboxing Academy and every young athlete from Dagestan who dreams of achieving UFC gold. But for McGregor and Danis, this powerful unity is seen as something to be attacked, to be mocked, and to be undermined. And the consequences of those attacks have proven to be severe.
Bro, this guy got beat up by a security guard. He got beat up by Anthony Theater. I smacked him. Like, he's a nobody, but who respects this guy? This guy is a nobody. He can't even go to UFC event anymore.
Dillon Danis's MMA career, such as it ever was, has now been completely reduced to irrelevance. He can no longer attend UFC events. He's been physically confronted multiple times, and if you believe Ali Abdelaziz, the consequences for his actions are far from over.
You know, and I'm telling you, some of you guys, media is also part of the problem, because you guys interviewed this guy just for views. But this guy, he's never going to be a champion. He's never going to be relevant. He's going to go miss fight with YouTubers. This is his end of the day.
The criticism also extends to the media itself, to the outlets that gave Danis a platform, that amplified his provocations, that essentially turned his online trolling into clickable content. In Abdelaziz's view, everyone who enabled this behavior shares a piece of the responsibility for what ultimately happened at Madison Square Garden. So where does all of this leave us? What happens next in a rivalry that has spanned nearly a decade, involved actual criminal acts, generated record-breaking pay-per-views, and now extends into the complex worlds of cryptocurrency and artificial intelligence? The NYPD investigation into the UFC 322 brawl remains ongoing as of November 27th. Criminal charges are still a very real possibility. The lifetime ban on Danis stands firm, and the threats from Khabib's camp continue to hang in the air like dark storm clouds that simply refuse to dissipate.
Because I represent Kamaru. Do he want to fight Kamaru Usman? If this is what he wants, and I agree with him. You know, what these other guys will do for him? Nothing. Kamaru's arguably the greatest welterweight all the time per day, in a way. Most title defenses. And honestly, he posed the biggest challenge for Islam. Because none of these guys can wrestle.
And Islam Makhachev, he has already moved on from the drama. He's looking toward his next big challenge, potentially a showdown with Kamaru Usman, the dominant former welterweight champion. He's already defended his lightweight title more times than Khabib ever. He's meticulously building a legacy that may one day eclipse even his mentor's remarkable achievements.
We're just seeing, I don't think we haven't seen the best of Islam yet. I think
the best version of him has to come. Just think about that for a second. The best version of Islam Makhachev hasn't even arrived yet. That is a genuinely terrifying thought for anyone who stands in his path. He's already one of the most dominant champions in all of UFC history. And according to those who are closest to him, there is still another level for him to reach. Meanwhile, Conor McGregor hasn't fought since His return to the octagon has been delayed repeatedly. His last victory inside that cage came against Donald Cowboy Cerrone way back in January of 2020. That's nearly 6 years ago. The man who once seemed destined to become the greatest star in UFC history has watched from the sidelines as Islam Makhachev has claimed the very throne he once occupied, and Khabib Nurmagomedov, he remains retired. With a perfect, unblemished he's focused on his charitable work, his rehabilitation centers, and his crucial role as a coach and mentor to the next generation of Dagestani fighters. He has built something far larger than any single fight could ever be, but the rivalry persists. It persists through proxies like Dylan Danis. It persists through heated social media exchanges about cryptocurrency. It persists through AI-generated videos and lifetime bans and active NYPD investigation.
this guy, you know, listen, at the end of the day, we live in an internet world when people say a lot of things they don't held accountable. But it was our group, you know. Listen, a couple of years ago, I have a problem with this guy too. And I slapped him.
Think about this. Ali Abdelaziz slapped Dylan Danis years ago. That initial confrontation was documented. It was written about. It was turned into headlines. And now, all these years later, the cycle just continues. A different venue, different circumstances. But it's the exact same underlying conflict.
Not proud about it, but in a way, I think people, that's why so many kids getting bullied, because nobody can do nothing. You know, you just get written up. And I think people have to be held accountable. That's why you have to teach your kids how to fight, how to do martial art, to make them defend themselves.
The lesson that Abdelaziz draws from all of this is about accountability. It's about standing up for yourself and about the fact that there are real-world consequences for your words and your actions. It's a worldview that has defined this entire conflict from the very beginning. This rivalry has fundamentally shaped the modern UFC. It has generated more money, more attention, and more controversy than perhaps any other feud in the sport's history. It has shown us both the best and the worst of what combat sports can be. The incredible athleticism and the compelling storylines, but also the violence that spills beyond the confines of the cage and the deep-seated hatred that simply refuses to fade. And with an ongoing investigation, continued threats, and a digital war that shows absolutely no signs of ending, one thing is abundantly clear. The McGregor-Khabib rivalry isn't history. It's still being written, one explosive chapter at a time. Click on one of the cards on your screen to see more videos just like this one.